And we are live. And we're happy to be here with you guys today. Here we are. I'm Juliana. I'm here with Ben, the managing director from Speero, and Valentin Radu, the CEO of Omniconvert. And we're going to talk about retention. And why are we going to talk about retention? Is because no one talks about retention. And not as much as, they should talk about retention. So guys, welcome. Glad to have you here. I hope you enjoyed the 2 seconds prep that I gave you before this webinar. How are you guys feeling today?
I'm good, Juliana. Thanks for having me here. Kind of excited to talk about this. I've been thinking a lot, even just this week, about how, I'm curious about the community on this event, and then our community kind of overlaps with a lot of the product experimentation. So I'm going to be talking a lot about that. It's a little bit of a geek out area of mine, because I think that there are groups of people that concentrate a ton on retention, but there's a big gap of a group that don't. And that's a recent curiosity of mine. So I'll probably look through that lens quite a bit in this call.
That's awesome. And I'm happy that you're curious about this topic. And how are you, Valentin? How are you feeling? I see you in the conference room right now from the office.
I'm great. Yeah, I'm at the office, so everything is great. We have actually 6 colleagues, so it's
nice,
like 11% presence rate at the office. So we're good. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm excited as well to speak about customer retention. I'm hypnotized and obsessed about customer retention. I think it's a proof that we're talking here is the proof that we're expanding our consciousness about this phenomenon, and we're becoming self-aware as an industry how short-term is our vision.
Can I poke you on that? I'm just going to jump in, Valentin, because I'm curious of the definition of industry.
Me too.
Because recently I did a little bit of research through LinkedIn, just job titles. If you type in conversion rate optimization under people, and you start looking at those people, they have job titles around optimization, CRO, and things like that, okay? And then you do another type of search for experimentation. And these types of people have totally different types of job titles, and they're working from different angles. But broadly, CRO folks are more marketing driven. They're usually more under the CMO or the marketing function, and experimentation folks are more under product. And I think the SaaS world, tech, high growth companies, from my conversation, experimentation is like oxygen. So retention and churn and aha moments being measured and being, this is the oxygen for that group. But that's not what I think, that's not how you define our industry. It's more of like the CRO side of the CRO practitioners and the marketing world and things like that. So this division is, again, where I'm really geeking out. And I think around retention, especially with e-commerce, they're really far behind the SaaS model and thinking of your e-commerce website like a product and measuring it all the way through and the full cycle. So what do you say to that, Valentin, in terms of the definition of industry?
I think it's a broad definition, and anything that it's related with growth based on data-driven and based on let's say, understanding the users and the intent of the users, and really go in depth about why people are buying a certain product and or a certain service is crucial. And what I define as an industry is anyone which is passionate about this reasoning behind the actions. And I think the industry is somehow blended, because we are seeing people jumping from one job to another, but getting the knowledge from them. So even though they are people which have been spending their lives into product optimization, into a SaaS company, I think it's hugely impactful for an e-commerce to have such an expert in their team, and vice versa. I think this transactional type of approach, where show me the money is the mantra in e-commerce, can be useful for software as a service companies, which are, let's say, having moments when they are way too looking way too in depth and way too granular into metrics, forgetting the fact that at the end of the day the company should thrive, and that means making money, not making only aha moments and constant experimentation over the micro conversions, but the macro conversion pays the rent and the salaries of everyone as well. So I think the industry is enlarging right now, and there are many people which are passionate about these concepts and bringing them from the SaaS industry to the retail industry and vice versa.
Yeah. And I'll jump in on that then. Juliana, I don't know if you want to seed with some more.
Okay, I like this. No, I like where this is heading.
Yeah. On the second side, in terms of the what I would call is misused precision, sort of getting in the data trap on the other side, having a lot of data, which your tool like purports to like, let's bring more data around retention, but sometimes it can be, you can have too much data, you don't know what to do with it. And so that's good to bring up of like, where do you focus and what are the priorities, right? And as an industry, the e-com, focusing on the money, CRO, the tactics, the hacks that will eventually make your website look like an arcade game, is sort of going away. And even like the evaluations of e-commerce shops are being done more from this retention and community side. Like, how big is your community? Who's talking about you? How often are they coming back, etc.
I agree, and I just I'm gonna take the opportunity to kick off this conversation to ask you exactly this. Like, there's a lot of people that I guess are trying to define retention in a way that fits their own agendas. And if we talk about retention in e-commerce, even though there's clearly a movement right now that indicates, I don't know, interest or intent, as we like to call it in this industry, people are, again, trying to adopt a retention strategy and become customer-centric, all these buzzwords that I said right now. But there's a very big mismatch with what customer retention is and what most e-commerce brands or software companies are making it be. So I would like to kick this conversation by asking you guys, how would you define retention economics, and who wants to go first?
Valentin, you go first.
Okay, so retention economics, I think it's a broad term, but the definition of retention should be tailor-made for each company. If you're a retailer which is selling, I don't know, supplements, maybe it's not important to have people placing their second order, as your best customers are placing, I don't know, 8+ orders, or after 8+ orders, the chances for them to buy again are 90%. However, the retention as is now defined in the e-commerce landscape is the percentage of customers which are placing their second order with that company, because the drop is huge. I mean, we've seen that we have Amazon, which has something like 90% customer retention for their Prime subscribers, and we have the average companies. We've made this benchmark as well. We've seen that the average customer retention rate is 23%. So we need this type of benchmarks. We need this type of let's say common metrics, so that we can understand where we stand against in the industry, in the entire industry. However, we need to have a tailor-made approach on our own retention, because depending on what we're selling, we might be well off with the customers placing only 2 orders because we are selling, I don't know, boats or whatever we are selling, or whiteys, or where the buying cycle is not that frequent. Or we can define retention as the percentage of customers which are placing more than 5 orders on our website. However, we need to look at our own data, and I think what we are strong supporters over here is by at the concept of understanding what's behind the data, because data in itself, there are purely numbers. If they are not correlated, if we are not understanding, if we don't understand the meaning of those numbers, then that's it. We have those freaking reports and new PDFs to show to our decision makers, and nobody's moving the needle at the end of the day.
I like what you say, Valentin, and I would challenge you, not in the sense of that you're wrong, but in the sense of like, I would want to push you in the industry to do better around these benchmarks and having a framework for it. You know, the definition of like retention economics, it's definitely unique to each company, but there's got to be some frameworks around it. And this term like e-commerce, for example, this is not a relevant umbrella vertical. So, you know, the reason why it is unique to each company is because each company has a different growth model. So the framework, instead of, you know, e-commerce, right, we should dive into the type of product, the purchase cycle, the customer intent buckets, what the primary customer is, what the adjacent customer is, and how you sort of encourage these adjacent customers as you start to grow to get into these different types of growth loops, and where do you get them on board. So the framework that I like to look at or consider around retention, or, you know, you mentioned supplements, for example. This is a really good use case. We work with a really big supplement company, so I think a lot about this. The people that come to the supplement site for the very first time, the products are different, a very different type of product than the people that are coming back again. And what I mean by that is that when you're coming for the first time for supplements, you're shopping. So tactically, you might have some tabs open in your browser. I'm looking for magnesium, this store, that store, that store. You do this a lot with couches. You do this a lot with, you know, furniture, cars. These are shopping products. For supplements, this is an interesting case. The first time you go, it is a shopping product. The second time you go, the second time you purchase, is no longer a shopping product. And when is that? A second time, third time, fifth time? You mentioned like 90% propensity to buy after so many times. So at some point, it stops being a shopping product and it starts being a convenience product, right? Deodorant, flowers, these, the first time users, these are convenience products. Like, I know what it is to buy it. I'm not shopping around. I'm not going to shop. I'm going to buy. And so this is a framework, you know, a bed, therefore, is more analogous to an expensive like e-commerce SaaS tool than it is to a supplement company or supplement product or supplement landing page, right? And so that's where there's room for a framework to be a little bit better. And so that's where I challenge you, Valentin, to like these e-commerce benchmarks of retention, like they piss me off.
I totally agree, and that's why we've made them available on various industries. So if you're selling, let's say, supplements or whatever you're selling, indeed you will need to have benchmark. You will need to benchmark yourself against other companies which are selling supplements, not the ones which are selling furnitures or mattresses online or stuff like that. Indeed, the labels we are using, e-commerce and e-commerce benchmarks, are this way because the industry is not mature enough. So we have direct to consumer. It's the same thing. You are a direct to consumer, okay? And what you are selling? You are selling lingerie, or you are selling sodas, or what are you selling? Because if you're not looking at the purchase cycle, and you have a subscription, let's say you are selling a subscription with the cadence of 90 days, it's a totally different game than if you would be selling coffee where the purchase cycle is once a week. Then direct to consumer, e-commerce, but that's all we've managed to label as the concepts that we are operating with. And you're a fan of this concept of that the name of the thing is not that thing, but it's the closest thing that we have to label these kind of concepts that we are operating with. However, what is important though is to emphasize the fact that it's if we are not measuring it, that means it doesn't matter for us. And what it's a pity in the whole industry as the e-commerce industry, is that few companies are actually aware about their customer retention, and fewer companies than those are aware about their top 3 reasons. I'm a big fan of this way to nail down the problem. Okay, what we should be solving? What is the dominant question? If the company is not questioning itself, why aren't our customers coming back? And all they are asking is, how can we decrease the customer acquisition cost, or how can we improve the ROI? Then the company is not making any kind of progress. It's just tweaking some things. But if they are not nailing down the problem, which is, I don't know, we have customer experience problems. That's our huge problem. And why do we have customer experience problems? Because of our delivery times, or maybe it's because we set false expectations. And if this is the problem, then you have a huge problem that, by the way, you can solve it quite easily. And that will mean lower customer acquisition costs down the line, because you will afford to pay more for customers, because they will return more, and so on. But few companies are actually asking themselves the right questions.
I like also where Ben was going with the one time, and I want to ask, I like where you were going with the first time buyers versus the repeat buyers. And it's like the concept of jobs, because this is basically what it is, the concept of jobs and how you position your brand for repeat purchases and how you position your brand for new customers is very different, and it's a total different journey. And but I want to challenge you now, Ben. I didn't want to, but yeah, Lorenzo, I know you're watching this. So one of the biggest parts of jobs, and I know because I'm studying this right now, is that the job shouldn't be convenient. The job shouldn't be convenience. The job should be progress. So when it's convenience, it's not progress anymore. So how would you define the post-purchase thing? If it becomes convenience, is it still a job, or is it just, how would you call it?
I'm not sure I understand your question. So when I bring up the term convenience on a convenience product, this is classic like product kind of architecture. So convenience product, shopping product, unsought product, specialty product. And so these are the 4 classic types. So maybe you could clarify your question on like the progress versus convenience?
So people buy, I'm talking about buying behavior right now, not the product. So when people buy, they buy to make progress, right? That's the concept of jobs. But the theory of jobs says that if you buy because it's just convenient, so convenience is part of your behavior, you're buying because you're convenient, is not a job anymore. The job needs to be the whole concept of it is to not be convenient. It has to be, focused on progress. So maybe this is me asking a question because I'm trying to understand better. So I'm trying to rephrase it like this. So for first-time buyers, you have a job to be done that you understand from your existing customers. So you position your product differently to help people solve the job faster when they want to buy from you for the first time. But for your existing customers, how would we call that? Is it still a job?
Yeah, exactly. It would still be something that you're setting up for them to, in the shopping experience, for example, the first time buyer, you're setting up the dominoes so that's easy for them. It's convenient for them to do the shopping, the comparison, mitigation of fears, uncertainties, and doubts. You're conveying the certainty of success. And then later on, if it's a different type of intent with regards to buying versus shopping, for example, like convenience product versus shopping product, then you're solving a different set of issues around that. You're probably doing some branding work along the way, some branding reinforcement, some community reinforcement. You're pushing on the convenience and LTV and AOV, and a lot of the convenience products. Problems, quote unquote, that we work on, flowers, for example, we work in the US for this giant flower company. And flowers is a convenience product. You go there, I go there and I just want to buy, like this week, it's Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. I just need to buy flowers. I'm not opening tabs to shop around for flowers. I needed something done right now. I need to send my mom flowers. She needs to get them on Sunday, and then everybody's happy. Like, I don't care about if I'm that company. First of all, you'll see conversion rates are crazy high, right? Things like deodorant, these convenience products, conversion rates are really high. It's because people are not shopping; they're buying. So in that situation, your metrics are not conversion rate. They're AOV, they are LTV. Those are the situations where you need to think about what, Valentin, what you bring up, the measurement system. So I mean, your tool is a measurement tool around this. Our agency, you can look at our agency as a measurement agency. That's what we do. We set up measurement systems. You've got questions? Let's set up a measurement system to get you a more confident decision fast, right? That's the art of like, how can we get that fast? So I rambled there a little bit. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. Basically, to sum it up, it's like you have to be conscious of the shopping versus buying and shopping, convenience versus shopping. And basically, I mean, my main point is that if you want to sell better to new first-time customers, you have to understand from the existing customers what is the type of progress they wanted to make when they bought from you for the first time, so you can position yourself better to increase your conversions or sales and whatever. And basically, you're gonna put them on a different journey than you would put your existing customers, which takes me to the next question, because I kind of served it in a way so I can get to this. So 1 second, I have it here. So there are no silver bullets. I always say this on LinkedIn. There's not one software or one thing to just fix your retention rate. And I get this question a lot when people install Reveal and they're asking me how much their retention rate is gonna grow in a month. And I'm like, why would it be? Like, why would it help you grow your retention rate? So you cannot install a software to fix your retention problem. So in my opinion, retention is a mindset, exactly as custom conversion rate optimization is a mindset. So let's talk a bit about qualitative research, because qualitative research is the main thing, in my opinion, that can actually help you craft and inform your growth strategies or your marketing strategies and so on. Why do you think companies are skipping this step of the process and just try to inform their decisions based on what other people are doing, or simply on basic and trash advice that they find online? Because let's be honest, if you go on Google and research about how you can grow your company, and Alex was saying that from Loop in our podcast, you only get sales advice or conversion advice, or like everything is revenue centric, but there's nothing focused on how you can approach retention. So why do you think people skip this qualitative research part and just go and are data driven?
Yeah, I can start this one, Valentin, if you want.
Yeah.
I've got a strong opinion here. I think there's a clear framework for business growth and setting up a growth model for a company, and generally it's around identifying what's going on in the market, and not marketing, but in the market, the competition, in the competition space, where are the opportunities, where are the gaps, and then there's this marketing world, which is more customer focused, and that's where the qualitative activities generally sit. And the overlap, by the way, that Venn diagram overlap is product development, right? And product marketing. That's where product marketers sit, is that overlap. Generally, why they're not focused on listening to the customer as much as we say that they should is because they're more on this other side of that diagram. They're more, okay, this is our opportunity in the market. And let's not if we try to make everyone like us, then no one will love us. And that is set by the strategic opportunity, relative to the competition and the market in general. And so that's where customers sort of come from. And there's a lot of derivative strategies of growth for companies. And, the metrics that different channel owners are set up with and to track and to like, this is my metric I have to live or die by. They're set up according to those strategies. And then you have the marketing function that comes in. It's like, no, we should listen to the customer. We should listen to the customer. You still have to have that strategic filter. You need to have the filter of like, from the CEO, from top down, the top-down prioritization of what you're working on and why you're being a hero to this person and not a hero to this other person. You still need that. But for the people that you're being a hero to, how can you be better? How can you be a better hero to them? How can you think about adjacent users or adjacent use cases to grow? Because we want to grow. We want to provide our colleagues opportunity for advancement. So we have to grow our companies. So how can we then go to adjacent users and kind of loop in there? And that's where marketing comes in. That's where qualitative research can come in to really shine a focused beam on opportunities for growth from the customer standpoint, not the market standpoint, but from the customer standpoint, the adjacent customer standpoint, that area. Yeah.
Okay. Valentin, I see you're smirking.
No. I think we're alike on this one. I'm not gonna poke Ben on anything here. I just need to add that as we're in this industry of retailers, let's say, where retailers are trying to change their status quo. What I've been noticing in the last year is that their growth model is now challenged. And that means they need to do this digital transformation, and that's forcing them to become customer centric or to actually add the customer data into their model. And the growth machine that they are now building or tweaking needs to add this type of qualitative research data, and that I find this as a huge opportunity for the market to develop and for the consumers to benefit hugely out of it, because now the consumers are way more powerful than they've ever. The companies are more exposed than they are actually realizing. In retail, we have this quick commerce, we have these new expectations being set by Amazon with the same day delivery, with a one button, and everything is so easy because they are playing in the game of ability. And if the ability is high, so if it's dumb easy for you to switch from a provider to another one, then that means the value that you are getting should be way higher than it used to be. Because at the end of the day, if you are buying, I mean, if you are just picking up the products that your mind is already set to pick, that means you as a consumer are you're more powerful than you've ever been. And that means the growth machine that you as a retailer you need to build should include other aspects, other components. And I think that's the huge opportunity in the retention economy. It's the opportunity of not acquiring customers like total strangers that will come back because you have your supermarket in that area of the city where no one can get. Right now, your geography is expanded as a supermarket, as a grocery retailer, for instance, or whatever you're selling. And that's why the statistics are showing that the direct-to-consumer industry will boom to 105 million buyers only from the United States. And that means you will decide as a consumer from where you will buy. And that also means for you as a retailer, you need to tweak a different growth machine. So you need to get back to the drawing board at the decision level, and you will need to include other types of success metrics. Things like, I don't know, the customer happiness score or whatever that is. You need to invent things that are relevant for your own business maybe. You need to look at how many customers are having the highest customer satisfaction rate and the highest CLV out of the total number of customers of ours. So if you have 1 million customers, we aim this year to get 15% out of them being in this, let's say, batch of highest NPS, highest CLV, and the highest RFM score. So those things are about to be challenged, and if they are not going to adapt, I think that's the fabric of our existence as a human species, right? If we don't adapt, we will simply vanish.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that, Valentin. Maybe say what you said, but with a different set of words. I like a different language. I think it's helpful just like to look at it through different lenses. The trend that we see for in the services space and the SaaS world is that this applies to e-commerce as well. Competition is rising, cost of acquisition is rising. Common story there. So how do you tackle it? And you spelled out a nice story arc there for how to tackle it. The language that I would use to just say the same thing, though, from a different angle, is that we see a lot of legacy organizations. When you say going digital transformation and such, we see a lot of legacy organizations going from a sales-driven growth model into a marketing, or better yet, product-driven, growth model. And then when you're doing that, you're having to think full cycle. You're having to break down the silos of things. You're having to gather more feedback at each step of the journey, and just think a little bit more broadly in doing that. So freemium models, customer service as a channel, right? These types of things are big. And then real quick on the back side of the question was around the qualitative side, and you mentioned inventing metrics. I will say from a qual kind of geek out perspective, that's sort of my strong suit, I would say, within this industry. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great things on there. There's no necessarily need to invent new wheels. I mean, NPS gets a really bad rap sometimes, but if it's used right, it's right. But there's other metrics that a lot of really good, cool people are doing. The Super Q is more of like a system usability score, but specific to digital purchase or digital experience quantification and perception quantification. So perception of loyalty, which NPS is underneath, credibility, trust, aesthetics, usability, message clarity. There's frameworks for this that are out there for people to grab onto and use, and journal articles that have rigorously studied these benchmarks. And so there's a lot of really cool tools for these companies to start using. And one hack that we're doing, and I call it a hack because it's very tactical, but measuring customer experience on your website and getting that measurement in an experimentation readout. If you're trying to affect the perception of user experience on a website, you can measure that through conversion rate, of course, but also a lot of the activities on affecting customer experience will not directly affect conversion rate. They might affect brand or aesthetics, so your redesigns, that type of stuff. And so a thank you page, survey, star rating, was this website easy to use? Things like that and that just doesn't come from me. That's one of those like Super Q benchmark metrics that has a lot of explanatory power towards benchmarking the user experience and then getting that metric into your experimentation framework, so you're measuring it rigorously and you can make decisions more quickly accordingly. That's a big again hack that we do with a lot of our clients to help out. So
I don't like the word hack anymore.
Yeah.
I think Sean Ellis, when he came up with growth hacking in 2011, he wouldn't thought it's gonna become what it became today. And actually saw him post about this the other day on a comment that this is not what he means with growth hacking. But yeah, I agree with the thank you page. I actually posted yesterday about it because people go through so many emotions after they purchase that it's very good for you to react to those emotions in a positive way to help people feel comfortable, or at least to see what type of experience did you offer on the website. Was it easy for them to choose the product? Was it easy to navigate? Was there's so many things you can do on that page, instead of just using the Shopify basic thank you page and just move on with your life. So I agree, I like that. Let's talk a bit about, because I have a lot of questions, and I had to open my LinkedIn because people are sending me questions on LinkedIn. So I have a lot of questions from people. But before that, I want to ask you, Ben, about your benchmark. And I have a question that I wrote down, and I have no shame. to say that I wanted to make sure I got it right. So you guys found a number of areas in the experimentation benchmark, which is linked in this event description. But if you signed up, I'm going to send you the link. So you found a number of areas that only the highest mature level businesses have in place when it comes to experimentation. So you said that there are strong indicators that if you want to increase the effectiveness of your experimentation and retention programs, there are some pieces of the puzzle that smaller companies are missing and they're not basically doing right now. So what are those areas and what can smaller companies do to catch up with the more mature companies that are doing better?
Yeah, so real quick context, the study, we benchmarked experimentation programs, about 210 of them. And this is from our audience, so it definitely is biased, I think, towards experimentation programs focusing on the marketing website, like not a lot of so much product experimentation programs in there. So that's got some caveats. It's not a statistical analysis looking for correlation even, let alone causation. We're looking at data. We're looking at characterizing the trends a little bit, and it's really looking at like where the hockey stick of like what is like nobody doing, and then the transformative companies are really like doing that like full bore. One of the really weird ones are not weird ones, but sharing results of wins, sharing results of learnings. This is a big hockey stick one where, it fosters the culture of innovation. It fosters the culture of growth when you're breaking through the silos with standardized learning formats to like the sales team learn this from customers and they get that to the acquisition team. And then that goes to the product team and everyone can be on the same stage or the same playing field, so to speak, with those learnings. But the big ones relative to this conversation, I think, is around how these companies are addressing or whether they're using their experimentation function to test out or grow loyalty programs and kind of loyalty programs, customer service, those areas of the business. And so we're only seeing minority, 20% or less of these experimentation programs focused there. Where frankly it's its own swim lane. There's no reason not to test around that, and you need to start collecting data. And maybe there's a lot of organizations that have dedicated groups that are focused on just those programs, the loyalty, customer success, and those areas, retention, kind of those retention little areas. So we're a lot of really cool data in that report. This is the first time we're doing it. We need to improve it. We want to kind of stretch out the normalization that we got on it and kind of poke a little bit deeper in some of these programs. And we're continuing to get, send this out and benchmark. So we're up to like 500 or something programs that we're benchmarking. Yeah. So more reports on that at some point soon.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. And I think the fact that there's a lot of, it's a lack thereof, internal alignment in companies and everyone is basically working on their own, and it's a Romanian saying, everyone is on their slice. I know in English it doesn't sound as good. Valentin is laughing because he knows. Yeah, like basically internal alignment, I think the lack of internal alignment is the biggest problem most companies have. And I think, and I say this a lot, like if a company would focus, again, on the job to be done and have a series of integrated processes inside the company that complement each other, they wouldn't have to worry about competition or external threats because they would have their core like this at all times. But if there is no core and everyone is just all over the place, it's very hard for companies to, grow and approach experimentation or anything for that matter. So I'm excited for more benchmarks. And on this note, Valentin, I'm going to pass it to you right here. And I'm not ashamed, again, to say that I wrote this down. I don't have to read this one. So we have released benchmarks as well around retention and customer lifetime value. And one of the main finds that we had was that, as Valentin was saying earlier, the average retention rate of an e-commerce company is 23%. So Valentin, this is insanely low, and I know, we know, but I want to ask you, for everyone that's listening, why do you think the rate is so low? And what are some things that impact customers to basically be so disloyal to the brands that they, purchase from?
Yeah, I think the reasons are quite obvious, and the main reason is the mentality of the decision makers. I mean, this is by far the most impactful thing, because once if the company is not signaling down there in the trenches for the people which are working with the customers that this is important, then the employees are not caring that much if the customers are coming back. The KPIs are being set towards the customer acquisition, or towards the revenue growth, or towards other things that could look well. And let's say they've checked the boxes. So if the company has no objective towards customer retention, then that means the KPIs of the people which are being entitled or in there that could move the needle are not going to be aligned with improving the customer retention. And we have these silos, and that means the companies are just improving locally, right? So it's like in the CRO, it's like you always optimize the middle of the funnel and never the top of the funnel or the bottom of the funnel. So you are stubborn enough and to just tweak around only those aspects of the business. And I think that is the number one reason. So the management is what should change in their mindset. And the second reason is that it's not that sexy. So nobody gets to the I don't know, to a barbecue party saying we've won back 25,000 customers last year, but everyone says we've acquired 250,000 new customers, because this is the mindset, and that means it's a sign of pride to acquire new customers. So the mantra is new customers. It's like everyone is giving a prize and labels you as successful if you acquire new customers. Who cares if they are not going to come back, or who cares if you've paid a lot of money and your payback period is 3 years to compensate the investment. Nobody cares about those things, and that has to do with the short-termism. So that means instead of looking at the whole thing down the line and what you're trying to accomplish as a company, how many loyal customers you have, what's your growth machine, how does retention plays its part, and how those retained customers act as an enhancer and as a diminisher of the customer acquisition cost thanks to their word of mouth, nobody cares about. So mainly those are the main two reasons. And the third reason is that it's freaking hard. I mean, if customer retention would have been easy, everyone would have done it. But in order to improve the customer retention, you need a lot of, let's say, skills, despite the tools. I mean, there's a ton of tools. We've made one tool. It's a great tool. We think you can test that, but it's not about the tool. It's about how you are using the tool. It's like in those martial arts movies, you know, when you have a bare hand guy which is beating up 10 guys with their swords because he has the skills. No matter, it's not a tool, it's about the skill. And in order to improve customer retention, you need to have a basic understanding of human psychology and the buying habits. You need to know how to interpret the data and to collect the data and to make sense of the data. Because it's one thing, the data, and it's about another thing, the insight, and it's about another thing, the actionable insight. So can you do something about it or not? Because otherwise you are into this analysis paralysis loop. To improve customer retention, besides knowing the psychology and the data, you need copywriting skills to reframe things, right? You need to frame reality so that it makes sense for your customers. And to improve customer retention, you also need the ability to build an ecosystem of tools, because you need those technical skills to put things together. So, and to trigger some email campaigns, which makes sense when the customer is pissed off because of your late delivery, without broadcasting the fact that he has a discount because it's a new customer. So to orchestrate this type of customer journey, you need to align a lot of tools. And many companies are trying that, and they get back to their siloed approach, where the email marketing team is doing something, the customer support team is doing another thing, and that's it. So you have this schizoid approach on customer retention, and you can't wonder why your customer retention is flat at 25% if you are having this kind of approach. So I think those are the three main reasons. The company mindset is the number one. The unsexiness of growth in terms of customer retention, and the fact that it's freaking hard and we don't have the knowledge to improve it yet. We don't have like a methodology which is certain. Do this is the game plan, everyone should be doing it. And mainly that's what we're trying to achieve, to make more professionals aware about the basics, let's say. And that's why we've built a course around customer retention and customer lifetime value optimization.
And I also want to add to that, Valentin, because you described the perfect conversion rate optimization person we were talking about earlier. So like literally it's the mindset, which helps, because if you have that mindset when it comes to data, into interpreting data, into connecting the data, into making sense of it, I think you can approach retention as well, because there's a lot of people that are trying to go from conversion rate optimization only to the whole customer journey. And it's not hard because you already have the mindset of persuasion and data and psychology. And I think it's it's cool. So I have a test for you guys. I'm gonna give you an exercise, a math exercise, and then I'm gonna take the questions that people are bugging me here, but in a good way. I love you. I love you all. I love you all. Okay, so I have a test for you guys, and it's like this. Let's say you guys have been hired to be a CMO by an e-commerce company that right now has a customer retention of 18%, a monthly retention rate of 18%. They are selling sports apparel, and they have 2 years of activity. So from a total number of customers of 14,000, 10,000 of them purchased only one time and never came back again. So what would be the first thing you guys would do in the mission of fixing their retention rate? And yes, I know it's a broad question, but I want to make sure that I give up the people that are listening today an idea of what is actually important to do when you want to get started about approaching a retention strategy. So who wants to go first?
I would go first, and I'd tackle that from a measurement standpoint. So there, I think my answer will drill down probably pretty quickly into the qualitative research. But before that, placing that type of data in context with the rest of the measurement system. So first of all, that that percentage, what was it, 18% you said or something?
Yeah.
That that is good, right? That means you're measuring it. So you've got that, right? So you've got your benchmark.
Yeah.
And then kind of working back from there from a very much a product development standpoint. So working through the phases from acquisition to conversion to retention. What is that journey like? There's some benchmarking in terms of the journey mapping that can be done, and then starting up research activities, whether it's like intercept polls in that middle area, it's customer interviews on the backside. It's some message testing on the front side. Those are the activities that I would set up forth to create kind of like that. First of all, create that measurement system, and yeah. Cool.
I'm with you 100%. I think without qualitative research, you cannot do anything. Period. I'm a big fan of qualitative research myself. So Valentin, how would you fix that horrible retention rate? And I know you fixed worse than that, so tell me.
So the first thing I would do, I would make sure that I'm making I would make sure that I'm meeting the decision makers, the ones that can move the needle within the company, and I would do the numbers with them and make them realize how much they've lost in the last 12 months and how much they will lose in the next 12 months, because many companies are, let's say, trying to improve the customer retention because they've seen some statistics that it's good, but unless they actually see that they will lose 2.6 million euro, which is their marketing budget for the next 2 years, they will not be so incentivized to move the needle. So that's the first thing. I would.
I like that one, Valentin. I'm going to steal that because that pays for my plan.
Yeah, so that's the first thing. The second thing, I would find out the why, which means qualitative and quantitative data. I would find out what's happening, and that can mean to cluster the customers into different buckets to understand, are there any customers that, despite the horrid customer experience, the dumb packaging, the worst customer experience, despite all those barriers that the company has set in front of them, are still buying over and over again? And who are those winners, right? Are there, I don't know, 500 people, 1,000 people out of those which are continuously buying from them? And what makes them buy? Because those winners are the ideal customers that the company has. And I think the customer retention starts with the customer acquisition. I mean, it should start. And those are not separate things. It's like a flow, right? You acquire the right fit customers, then you don't have to incentivize and trick them into this discounting game to make them come back, because they are there for the quality of the product or for the whatever you have as a point of difference that makes them have this habit of buying. And that's what I would do. And in order to do this, I think that Rfm segmentation, it's a great way to cluster those. And there are some customers which we call the soulmates. Any company has at least 100 of them in the retail. In the services, maybe you have 2 or 3 of them. But fact is that they are buying despite all odds. And you need to understand why, so that you know what kind of customers you need to acquire, because that will move the needle in the future. That will mean you will stop bleeding money by acquiring breakups, as we call them, and any company has at least 10 times more breakups than soulmates, and that's not a good thing to do, because if you look at the CLV over CAC ratio, that's on them in particular, they are not even paying 10% of how much you've paid to acquire them. And after we run the numbers, after we identify the best customers to acquire, I will look at the specifics. Like, I will look at the jobs to be done by those products. I will onboard the customers differently. I will make them aware that they are making progress and that I care as a company. Because if you don't care about their progress, then that means you are just, I don't know, sending parcels all over the country. And it's a pity that many companies are doing just that without realizing that the need for connection is more important than ever.
Thank you. Okay, cool. I like that. So guys, this take like 6 to 10 months to do all these things. But listen, like I always say this, if you want quick results, you're not gonna find them in retention. Retention, as Valentin was saying earlier, it's not sexy, takes long as hell, and you have to work for it. So it's a long-term process, but the thing is that when you're doing retention, you're playing to win instead of just being focused on acquisition, and you're playing not to lose. So that's like the type of mindset. So I have 2 questions. I have time for 2 questions. One is gonna be for Ben and one for Valentin, or for whoever wants to take them. So I'm gonna go on LinkedIn to read this question from Jason. And he says that I was working with a supplement company where we were running 50% off multiple times a month. For months, I was having conversation with the leadership about how it was killing our retention strategy and negatively impacting our acquisition, but didn't make any headway. How do you recommend framing these conversations for leadership? This is a great question.
So they were running 50%. What was that part?
So they were running monthly 50% discount campaigns to get sales.
Yeah, I think Valentin just answered this question in a way. Like everything that you said, Valentin, was to that question, right?
Yeah, so I think they should be simply running the numbers and see how negatively was for them to do this heavy discounting campaign. And one way to mitigate this would be just to do what I call cohort A/B testing. So you onboard different customers differently, but at all the touch points down the line. So not only on the website, but the email onboarding is different for them, the package inserts are different for them, and the reactivation and nurturing campaigns are different and are not commercially incentivizing them. And you will be able to see the CLV for 30, 60, 90 days without blasting them with this kind of discounts.
Thank you. I also think there's a lot the problem that, on the software side and the emotional side is that a lot of companies are employing people to do a job. It's just that the leadership doesn't let that person do their job because they think they know better. And this is like that hippo thing, concept where you come and you give them all the data. You're just like, here it is. And then they're like, no, we're gonna do another campaign. And it's hard. So sometimes maybe it's good to quit that job because some leadership is really, really bad. And I've seen a lot of people being in these positions of working for e-commerce companies that don't allow them to do their job. And I think you should go for people that are actually open-minded. And it's hard if everything is. It's again a Romanian saying that the fish gets stinky from the head. So if the head is stinky, the rest of the fish might be very stinky as well. So if you don't reason,
it will get, yeah. If it's not, it will.
It will get stinky.
But it gets stinky from the belly. I don't know if we don't need to talk about that, but yeah.
It's a Romanian saying. Yeah. So a question for Ben from Carlos. Carlos says, as a smaller SaaS company, how should you retain the interest of a prospective buyer whom is trialing the software, knowing they are trialing competitors in other tabs, okay? And those competitors might have more features due to their size. Is this differentiation, or should we concentrate on process in onboarding to retain?
I also think that Valentin's answer was brilliant to address this as well. But I will add on that if you think about, if you're not competing on features, then you need to compete on who your product implies the customer is, right? You need to compete on messaging, who you want to be a hero to. So we do a lot of message testing. We have our own tool, winter.com, winter with a Y. It's like user testing, but specific for messaging.
I love it.
And it's all around thinking about like how are you being perceived quantitatively by your potential audience and as they assess and as they shop, right? So otherwise, the cohort testing, Valentin, I call that journey testing as well. That's a great way to think about that, and everything that you said, Valentin, would apply here as well.
Cool. Well, I think we're out of time, but I don't want to take don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you something silly. So tell me, why spin the wheel having such a huge conversion rate and everyone hates it? Because I'm tired of seeing spin the wheels, man. Like, I think we should do a change in it.org or something, competition, or ask Friday to stop it. Because I don't know, like a lot of people are using it and they swear by it, and indeed it works from a conversion rate perspective. But at the same time, if you do research, you find out that it's actually super degrading to credibility. So why are people using spin the wheel? And why don't
same thing with like countdown timers will work in the short term, but not in the long term. 50% discounts, this will work on the short term, not in the long term. And so this pivots on your definition of how you're measuring ROI and how you're measuring, that conversion rate. You don't run a business for conversion rate, right? Like this is not, so it's just, it's a language game, you know, how you define growth and your business model.
It's marketing wins versus business wins. That's how I try to, you know, differentiate.
I had a client, this supplement company this year that came to us and be like, our website looks like an arcade game. We had a performance pay-based CRO agency. All they were doing, they were getting wins. Everyone was happy. Everyone was making money, but then their brand was just being killed. And they had slashed through pricing. They had this spin the wheel stuff. They had this countdown timer stuff. It was an arcade game. It was, and they're looking to elevate and to change the perception of who they are, and to think about community, repeat purchase, the value that their product gave to the consumer, and not tricking them through the funnel. And so this takes a different mindset. You know, from an agency perspective, it's quite difficult. Like, here's the money that'll get you paid. But long term, it's not very good relationships, client agency wise or customer company wise, right? It's just bad relationship management. Yeah. I
agree. Well, thank you guys for being here. I would have kept you longer. You guys are both so smart, and I'm happy to be here. But yeah, I'm happy that we had this convo. I hope the people that were listening were, you know, receive value. And if you want to connect with Ben or Valentin, you can find them on LinkedIn, Ben Labay and Valentin Radu. And you probably already know me because that's why you signed up. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today. And yeah, thank you guys for taking the time. Will there be a recording? Yes, everyone that's registered to Crowdcast with their email, we will receive the recording and the links and everything that we talked about today. Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.